Okay, so my name is Antonin Bergeaud. I'm not at all an IT, AI IT specialist or developer. I'm a macroeconomic professor at HEC, and I actually studied the history of innovation. But as you probably realized, like 2 years ago when ChatGPT entered the market, there were a huge wave of anxiety from the government, from workers and employers, and they've been asked a lot of experts on innovation to think about the global impact of AI on the future of job, the future of growth. What can we expect? What should we do to maximize the impact? And this is what I've been studying since then. So I'm going to show you very briefly how economists and macroeconomists in particular think about the global impact of this new revolution that we see, and try to very briefly answer questions such as, will AI make human labor completely obsolete? Will AI generate infinite growth, or on the contrary, be very disappointing in terms of growth potential it can do? So, because I studied the history of innovation, I just wanted to show you only one number in this presentation. This is productivity growth over a very long time period. This is in France, but it's pretty much the same. This is in the US, but it will be the same in pretty much all developed countries. This is the growth rate of what we call productivity in economics, which is essentially the efficiency of production. It has always evolved since 1850, which is the first point. Today, the growth rate is very close to zero, and this is part of a major policy debate, and I spend almost all my time trying to understand why we are so low. But you can see that there were essentially 3 waves where productivity was quite high, and those are what we call the Industrial Revolution. The first one with steam engines, trains, and textile. The second one with basically electricity, oil, and everything that comes from it. And the third one with computers and ICT. There's been a lot of question about what will be next. What's interesting is that if you go in that direction, you would see that it was pretty much close to zero for many, many centuries. And actually sustained growth started only in 1850 in the US and in basically the same period everywhere in Europe. So it's very possible that the future would be the same as what we saw in the past, which is essentially zero growth for a very long time. When you see those 3 waves, you also see that what matters for growth is not so much steady development, although on average we grew at 2% per year per capita, which is quite remarkable. It's really the diffusion of radical technologies, such as electricities in IT and maybe AI. There is still an issue is that if you compare this wave, which may reach about 4% growth on average. This is like filtered, so it's really an average that we experience for several years. This is the impact of electricity. And if you compare it with the impact of IT, this is much more disappointing in a sense. And one of the reasons that economists have in mind is that, in fact, IT makes us much more efficient, obviously, but the diffusion of IT has been too slow, especially in European countries. And the reason is, people haven't been trained efficiently enough to integrate AI into their production, into their production. It's quite complicated when you're used to work with simpler tools to move to, using digital tools if there is no one to help you with that. But with generative AI in particular, it might be very different because generative AI is very easy to use. It's much cheaper to some extent that I will come back to. But adoption costs of basic tools, like think of ChatGPT or whatever, is zero. Right? It's very different from integrating full cloud computing services into your process. If you're writing articles in a journal, you can use ChatGPT. You don't need a big training to use it very efficiently, at least much less than what you experience with those 3 different technologies. Okay, so I've been too long, so let me rush. AI is what we call in the economic a general purpose technology, which means that it will impact all sectors, almost all sectors, probably impulse a lot of follow-up innovations. And we hope that it will create high productivity potential. It already have the potential, but the question again is about the diffusion of AI in the economy. So we can expect all this, right? Like AI will diffuse probably much more quickly than other technologies. It will impact a lot of tasks that we do every day, and already has impacted a lot of tasks. Will improve our efficiency on those tasks. But also, and that's very important, if we want AI to have impact, macroeconomically speaking, AI needs to be able not only to improve our efficiency on what we currently do, but to create new sectors, new products, new services, and new businesses. So if you think again of a journal, take any daily newspaper, what can they do with AI, right? They can automate some of the articles that were already partly automated, probably not the most creative and the most central articles that they publish, but let's say an arbitrary could be made probably directly by either ChatGPT or a more advanced AI that would be more tailored to this kind of task. That's going to increase their efficiency, but not by too much. I will show you some number at the end of how we can estimate it. What will really change the effect on the global economy is that if such a journal will create a new tool using AI, such as a special customer-specific toolbox that allows the customer to develop its own newsfeed based on AI that will kind of fetch a lot of information from the database of the journal. Okay, these kind of things that are being developed by a lot of newspaper. This is what creates a lot of value, at least from a global point of view. And there is the last point that is particularly new with AI, and it's been developed by some economists, is that AI can not only improve our process efficiency, but it can actually help to find new ideas. And in particular, it can help, let's say, researchers to accelerate science, accelerate the development of new ideas. And this is very important. It's a bit uncertain whether AI will help us, solve major issues that we have and major scientific challenges. But if it does even slightly, this could have major economic implication. Because in most models that we have, in most growth models that we have, what matters is the pace at which we can create new ideas, implement those ideas into the production, and use those ideas to create new businesses. If AI can help us in that, there is even model that show that you can get close to infinity growth rate, which obviously are theoretical results, but just to show you that this is actually the point that has the biggest potential. But because we have no idea at this stage about whether this will be possible or not, let's just concentrate on the other one. I said that I was going to show you only one number, but it's not true actually. But this one is very simple. I showed you productivity growth over a very long time period. If you think of productivity, it's how efficient, how additionally efficient we get as time advances. It turns out that today, compared to 1850, we are 20 times more efficient in producing the same value, which again is a bit of a theoretical object, but let's say to produce a value of €1 today, if we take €1 of today in 1850 value, it would take us 20 more resources or 20 more time in 1850. So what do we do when you get 20 times more efficient? Well, you have two choices. You can decide to produce 20 times more, or you can decide to work 20 times less. And you can basically take anything in between. If you look at the number, what we chose to do is that we decided only to reduce working time by half. So per capita, we work twice less than we used to in 1850. And we increased production and consumption by 10. Okay? So the reason I'm mentioning those numbers is that there is a huge debate that I will talk right now about the fact that AI will destroy jobs. Right? You get this tool that can do pretty much everything you do every day. So, why would you continue to work? And working time could go to zero. This is not the first time this question appeared. It actually, even in the 19th century, there were at this time already people envisioning a world without labor, human labor. It never happened in history. In history, we always chose either individually or collectively to develop institutions that will preserve working time, reduce it slightly, and in fact increase production and consumption. And there is no real reason why it would be different with AI. Okay, so how much time do I have? Probably not much. Okay. Okay, I will probably skip part of the presentation. So first question you may ask is AI making me more productive? The answer is yes. How do we know that? There's been a lot of what we call randomized control trials. So basically you go to firms, you give AI to some workers. So that's been done at the early stage of Gen AI. So you give AI to some workers, not to others. And then you look at the production that they can do. And what's been found in different studies is that workers using AI are 40% faster. So this is for analysts. The same results has been found for developers. So they are much faster in producing what they do. They're also more precise. So they produce analyses that are wrong less often. And they are even more creative. So there's been studies looking at the production of stories. And the stories using AI were actually better rated by a jury. They didn't know which story has been done by AI. This is basically a graph summarizing all this. So before AI, if you compare the two sets of workers, they were pretty much equally efficient. But after AI, you see that there is this efficiency gap that appears immediately. Okay, so it doesn't even take a lot of time to integrate those tools. This is months. So after 2 months, workers using AI got 30% more efficient than workers not using AI. So you might say, okay, great, we get a 30% increase in our run efficiency. That's what we call productivity. Productivity was 2% on average. Okay, so 30% is like 15 times larger than that. And I told you it's close to zero today. Okay, so that's a very good news for macroeconomists. But the main question is, okay, first, we need to know how many tasks are impacted by this. Okay, not everyone will have a 30% increase in productivity. It's mostly for those very specific jobs. It's been shown also that AI are much more efficient where they are embodied in existing product. That's also a way to reduce diffusion cost. Okay, you don't create a new PowerPoint tool. You integrate AI into PowerPoint. So people that are used to use PowerPoint, they will find the adoption cost much lower and become much more efficient. Of course, there is huge need for training. And also importantly, the error rate must be monitored very carefully. And there's actually one counterexample in all those studies that's been done on radiologists, where it's been shown that if you don't train people to work with AI, they tend to overtrust the result of AI in areas where they shouldn't do. And on the contrary, they tend to spend too much time on tasks that could be delegated by AI. And there are some counterexamples where AI make actually people less efficient. But that's not because the tool is not adapted. It's because people are not being trained enough to understand when should they believe AI and they should completely delegate what they do to AI, and when they should check the results. Okay, will AI destroy my jobs? I told you already there's been a lot of anxiety, and again, that's not a new debate. It's appeared in the 19th century, in the 1930s. Again, in 2007, there were this very famous paper that said, robots are going to take 75% of human jobs in the next 10 years. So now we are more than 10 years after, and it didn't happen. And the reason is that we used to think a bit wrongly about the effect of technology on jobs. We used to think, okay, one job can be either destroyed or not destroyed by technology. In fact, what really matters is not jobs, it's tasks. Okay, and basically in a regular day, you do a number of tasks. Some of those tasks are going to disappear because AI can do them much more efficiently than you. It's very likely that you didn't like to do this task anywhere, or you didn't really, that's the core of your job. So you will delegate those tasks to AI. And what matters is actually how much of your job is made of those tasks that you will delegate completely to AI. And it's actually not a lot. If you look at individual tasks, you get to a ranking of occupations. So this is ready to be taken with caution. So it's more like a guesstimate, but you can rank occupation based on what is the share of those tasks that they do that could be done more efficiently by AI, and something that is important, at a low cost of adoption. Because you can always invest millions and millions to develop an AI that will do exactly my job, but it's probably unlikely that anyone will do that. But if it's cheap, and if AI is more efficient, that will happen, and it probably already happened. So, well, you can rank occupation, and it doesn't really matter which one is to the right, but what matters is that you can get to a guesstimate of 5 to 10% of jobs that are going to be, let's say, very much impacted by AI in terms of the content of their task. It's mostly entry jobs, though. Okay, so jobs that were done by junior workers or by interns. And it's mostly jobs where women are more predominant. That's essentially because you will find to the left, so those jobs that are not very impacted, you will find a lot of manual worker jobs where there is more men. Okay, so individually you will have some job destruction. Okay, 5% is not a lot, macroeconomy speaking, but it's a lot individually. It's a lot of people that you need to train, you need to help and retrain. But it's really far away from the 75%, 80%, or 100% that some people have considered. And that's, assuming that AI will continue to develop at a pace that is probably, at least uncertain. Maybe it's realistic, maybe not. So it's not, considering the current state of AI. It's already envisioning the future. Okay. Will AI boost the economy? Yes, for sure. There's many channels that's really about economic theory, so let me skip that. I just want to give you a pessimistic view and then an optimistic view. The pessimistic view, if we do nothing, okay? If we just take the tools that exist, we integrate them, we substitute the few workers that can be substituted. So we still benefit for the 30% increase in productivity that I showed you, but for a very small number of workers, because you don't develop the tools that are really tailored to your business. If we do it, you can make heroic assumptions about the efficiency of AI, about how fast it will develop, but the fact that ChatGPT 5 will be 10 times faster than the previous one, whatever you want, you get to, those are different countries, you get on average to about 2 to 3% additional growth rate over the next 10 years. Okay, so it's not zero, that means 0.3% additional growth every year. So I'm pretty sure that at the individual firm level, that is very, very low. Globally speaking, it's not zero. We are close to zero, so adding 0.3, it's good. You can think of it as an additional growth of GDP, which, in France, it would be a very good news to add 0.3. But it's very disappointing compared to what we expected. Some people even expected, again, that AI will generate infinite growth, right? It's a gain that we will have no matter what. Again, if we do nothing else than taking existing tools that are available on the market and just integrate it on tasks that are easy to automate. Okay, and the reason is that if you do nothing, if you don't invest into tools that are specific to your company, using your data, your expertise, working in complementarity with the workers, you don't get a lot. And so the most optimistic view, let's say, is that, I'm pretty sure I don't need to convince you, but what matters is that you include AI within your process, that you, instead of being anxious about the impact of AI on jobs, you integrate the idea that jobs are not going to disappear. Okay, it never happened with technology. AI is probably not different. Jobs are going to adapt to work in complementarity with AI, and all the more that you develop AI tools that are tailored to your specific needs. And if you do it, and most companies have the data, the expertise to train models that they can integrate, and that will have huge efficiency gain, then there is no reason to think that we will be limited to 0.3%. On the contrary, it would be probably 10 times more, I don't know. For individual firms, it can be huge because obviously there will be some kind of first mover advantage if you integrate AI into your sectors and you're really leading the way into how to integrate generative AI into your process with your own expertise, your own data, instead of using tools that are more generic, you will have huge gain. It happens with IT technology. It's probably actually one of the reasons why we have such a concentrated economic landscape today. So it could happen with AI. I told you that there are some models that show that there is a theory that will be that rationally generate infinite growth, which doesn't make sense, but just to show you there is no limit in how much you can grow if you do this. Just one last conclusion point. What could go wrong if we do that? There is one, I showed you before, there is one bit of a negative example of the effect of AI, of technology on growth. This is the third industrial revolution. If you remember the first graph I showed you, the wave, the increase in growth taking from the third industrial revolution, which was much lower than the one from the second industrial revolution and the impact of electrification in general. There's many people that try to understand why. There's one theory that is getting more and more predominance, is that, in fact, when IT diffused, the firms that make the right choices in the 90s, so they started to adopt IT very quickly in their process and to massively bet on AI, especially in the US. You have examples like Starbucks and Walmart that very quickly integrate IT into their logistics. then after a few years, they become so predominant that they get what we call in macroeconomic excessive market power, which means that they don't have any incentive to innovate anymore. They don't have any incentive to take risk because they get, pretty much all of the market share that they want. And, there is no much competition anymore for them. So this is something that could also happen with AI. It happened with some other technology. If if AI gives too much of an advantage to some firms, and if there is not enough competition, there is a risk that this will create excessive market power to those firms, and that they will stop the development of new tools that requires risk-taking and that requires investment. The good news is that because of the nature of AI, this is probably unlikely to happen because AI also have a very big open community. There is a lot of tools that are generated by outside the business landscape. But we need to be careful about how we design our competition policy. Thank you very much, and sorry for being too long.
No, of course. Thank you.